Welcome one, welcome all to part 2 of Press YYZ's Game of the Year 2020. We are your favorite Canadian gaming podcast. You can watch the show live on twitch.tv/PressYYZ every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, or listen to it whenever you feel like it on your podcast service of choice, as well as on our YouTube channel. Go into YouTube, just search Press YYZ, should be the first thing that comes up. We appreciate however you choose to support us, including a subscription via your free Twitch sub that comes with your Amazon Prime subscription. But if you've got no loonies or toonies to spare, it's all good. We'll be here for you no matter what. Like I said, we are into part 2 of our Game of the Year 2020 coverage. With me tonight, as always, is the phenomenal Nathan McInerney.
Hey!
The thumbnail thespian, AJ Fraser.
You remembered to introduce us this time.
Yes. Baby boy, Alex Ballant.
Hello, everybody.
And the backbone of Press YYZ, Alexander Kozina.
If you're listening to this, there are probably some Black Friday sales on. Go take advantage of them. Wait a minute, what am I saying? Black Friday. I mean Boxing Day.
I am your host with the most for tonight, Mr. Mitch George. And let's just quickly recap where we are in our Game of the Year discussion. So, last week, in the last episode, whenever it is you're listening to this, we went through all of our honorable mentions, the best of the rest, as well as number 5 and number 4 on each of our Game of the Year lists. AJ, at number 5, had Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and at number 4, he had Animal Crossing New Horizons. Alex had The Last of Us Part 2 in the 5th spot, and Half-Life Alyx at number 2. Cozy had Astro's Playroom at number 5, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order at number 4. Nathan had Sackboy: A Big Adventure at number 5, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 at number 4, and I had The Last of Us Part 2 at number 5, and Among Us at number 4. How do we feel so far about the way this list, our individual lists, are kind of shaping up? Can you kind of see where people's heads might be at with regards to their top 3, or is everything at this point forward going to just surprise everybody?
I think that we're going to get a lot of surprises, in part because we had 2 of our hosts here completely change up what one of their games were mid-stride. So I think that the future yet is unwritten.
That is correct. Yeah, so for those who didn't catch it, I actually had Clubhouse games in my top 5, but pulled it out and knocked Last of Us down to put Among Us in at number 4. And AJ, you made a change as well.
Yeah, I moved Bug Snacks off my top 5 list after I heard Cozy bring up Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and decided, you know what, that game deserves to be on my top 5, the little bit that I played of it this year, more so than Bug Snacks. So it went to my number 5 spot.
Alex, you were trying to say something and I rudely interrupted you, so please go ahead.
Oh, all I'm going to say is most people, I feel like I can get a sense of like where their heads are at, especially because it's like I know what they've played this year. Cozy, I have no idea what's going to be on your 3 through 1. At this
I think
point,
I have an idea of what number 1 is going to be for Cozy.
It's possible. It's possible I might have already shared what some of these games are on a very drunken holiday party, but I don't know if the people who were present for that party remember what I said.
I do.
Okay.
I remember most of that party, including the super drunk tweet that I put out that everyone was complimenting me on the grammar and the punctuation. I'm like, that was sent at 3 a.m. I didn't know what I was saying. But yeah, for those who don't know, we did have a bit of a holiday party within the Kind of Funny Toronto Discord, which, a little bit of inside baseball here, in the new year, we are going to be rebranding that and promoting that as the official Press YYZ Discord. More information on that will follow, but we look forward to having any and all of you who aren't already with us for the Kind of Funny Toronto Discord to be joining us as Press YYZ fanatics. Nathan, any thoughts on what we're seeing thus far?
No, honestly, I think there's a game which I expected to be near the top, really low.
Are you surprised of where I put The Last of Us Part 2?
Yeah, I didn't play The Last of Us Part 2, but it's definitely lower than I thought it would be so far on this list, based on everything else. But I think that just speaks to how strong this year was in gaming in general.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is a much stronger year for games than last year.
I mean, for me, the thought behind the change for The Last of Us and putting Among Us in there is I don't necessarily feel like Among Us is the better of the 2 games, but for 2020, like The Last of Us is going to have a long-lasting legacy the way the first game did. But
yeah.
in 2020, and I'm sure there are going to be other games on this list that reflect it, multiplayer experiences, especially those like Among Us, like Apex Legends, like Fall Guys, like other battle royales, like Fortnite, we've seen a huge resurgence of this year. There's just been an abundance of desire for strong multiplayer games, and I think we found it sometimes surprisingly in the case of Among Us, or less surprisingly in things like Call of Duty Warzone and Fortnite and games of that ilk. But I think with that being said, do we want to get into the top 3?
Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
Who wants to go first? Who wants to volunteer? Don't everybody all speak at once. If you don't,
said not to speak at once. So
you know
not.
what? Forget it then. I'll go third. My third favorite game of 2020, Spider-Man Miles Morales. So for those who know me, you know how big of a Marvel fan I am, a Disney fan with Marvel now being under Disney. I got engaged at Walt Disney World, for God's sake. Spider-Man holds a special place in my heart. Especially, like the 2018 game is top 5 all time. I think it's my favorite it's my favorite game that came out after like 1997 or 8. It's just that good.
So wait a minute.
We were getting a.
Is the same true of the next 2 games on your list as well?
No, I'm talking specifically Spider-Man 2018.
Okay.
So my top 3 games of all time are in order. Number 1, Pokemon Blue. Number 2 is Tetris on the Game Boy, and then third is Spider-Man 2018. Because I love that game so much. To know we were getting a smaller story in that same universe with Spider-Man Miles Morales was something I was really excited about because it's a character I'm not as familiar with.
For a second,
I
thought you were saying Spider-Man Miles Morales is one of your favorite games since 1990, whatever, and I was going to be like, so what about the next 2 games? That actually, your explanation here makes much more sense.
Yeah, no, sorry about the confusion there.
No, it's fine.
I've been using GG, the mobile app, a lot this year in terms of managing my backlog, and I've got like a top 10 list for this year, all the games I've played this year, and my top 10 games of all time. Spoiler alert, every game from this point onward is one of my 10 favorite games of all time. So Spider-Man Miles Morales for me comes in at number 3 for 2020 because, like I said, I grew up on Peter Parker in like the 90s cartoon, the Sam Raimi trilogy of films. Like I grew up in this character. Like Peter Parker is my Spider-Man. So to know we were getting another character adjacent to that who was going to mean a lot to people that have grown up with this character was something I was really looking forward to. The way Insomniac told their story in Spider-Man 2018, I was very excited to see where they take the character of Miles in this smaller release. And it is honestly a powerhouse showcase for the PS5 at launch. Like Alex said this because it was one of his honorable mentions. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a really, really beautiful game. Like this game running with full ray tracing, and you can get it up to 4K, or you can do ray tracing and 60 FPS at 1080p, which is ridiculous. Yeah. And that's spoiler alert. I've been playing the Spider-Man remaster a bit, and at 60 frames per second with full ray tracing, oh boy, is it a pretty looking game.
Yeah, 2018 looked amazing on the PS4, and the fact that they somehow managed to bring it to the next level while still like it just looks that much better. And I think also like underrated, the performance mode is, in my mind, it's the definitive way to play that game because of just how smooth, and it really emphasizes just how fast that game is, especially playing as Miles, who like I feel like in some ways is more fun to play as than Peter, just because of
I was just going to say that. The fact that I'm playing remaster now and remembering how Miles felt, there was so much more fluidity to his movement. There was a lot more tools you had out of the gate as opposed to Spider-Man. It is a bit of a slow build up to getting all your skills and things like that unlocked. I feel like traversal was a lot better here than it was in 2018 with all of the Venom skills and the story that Insomniac delivered in this one. Oh my God. Yeah. Like Spider-Man 2018 made me emotional on a whole other level of like, I was not expecting. Oh, also forgot off the top, full spoilers for any game we talk about right now, because it's our games of the year and we need to talk about all the little intricacies of them. So big old spoiler warning off the top. We're going to talk spoilers about these games. The story that was told in 2018 with Peter with Aunt May and Mary Jane, like that really hit me because those characters were really close to me. And even for characters I'm not as familiar with in Spider-Man Miles Morales, something about that, right, it still hit me right in the feels. Like multiple times I'm sitting on my couch or on stream over at twitch.tv/Mr. Mitch Roach, just bawling my eyes out because it's so damn beautiful the way that they can tell a story with these characters. And I could not put this down. I played through it entirely on visuals mode, the first playthrough, and then I speed run the game for the Platinum Trophy on New Game Plus in performance mode. And goddamn, I wish I had played it that way from the start.
Yeah.
Because like Alex said, it's the way to play that game. Now I would say it's performance plus ray tracing. If you don't have a 4K TV or don't really care about the visual dip. So for those, I think Alex, you and I are the only two to have played it, right? I don't think Nathan and Cozy have gotten to it.
Yeah.
And
I'm
Adrian,
we'll get around to it. Don't worry.
To get to it.
Yeah, I still need a PS5.
So I think I cannot say enough about this game. If you have a way to play it on the PS5, please do it. If you don't now, wait. I would recommend waiting for a PS5 if you're looking at picking one up, because this is a great showcase of the system, and there's a few games coming out next year. Like seeing what Insomniac did with this game, I am excited to see what Sony first party will do on the PS5 when they're not also having to build a version of the game for the PlayStation 4. And that's why Spider-Man's in my top 3. It's hitting number 3 on my games of the list games of the year list for 2020.
How much have you had to drink?
I am not even halfway into this beer, and my mouth just forgot how to work.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking.
So I apologize to everyone having to listen to this.
I remember my first beer too.
Nathan, you want to make me stop talking and tell us about your third game on your list?
Yeah, my third game was Astro's Playroom. Astro's Playroom is a small experience. We've already talked about it. It was on two people's best of the rest. But I think it's a phenomenal platformer. I think it's a short experience. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I would still love more of it, but I think the way it's a show-off piece for the DualSense controller, the homage to PlayStation's history really hit home. Like it was a joy to get the platinum in that game and finding all the, like a lot of the trophies, which were weirder ones, I did just from just on their own. It's a great little game. Astrobot's got a ton of personality, and I think he is the new mascot for PlayStation. And is this the best pack-in game ever?
I would still give that to Wii Sports, but I would say it's close.
Yeah, it's close if you're hit or miss on Wii Sports. I think this is a better game than Wii Sports, but
the thing about Astro's Playroom
experience
is, I mean, Wii Sports might be the more important pack-in game, but Wii Sports is definitely an inconsistent experience where baseball is great, and then tennis is sort of on the okay side, and then boxing is, not that responsive. Whereas Astro's Playroom,
bowling.
I said boxing, not bowling. Bowling is great.
Bowling is next level. Like that is the highlight of that package, but we can continue.
My point is, it's inconsistent. There's some highs, there are some lows. Astro's Playroom is entirely highs. Even like the gimmicky parts, like the monkey climbing and the frog, all those stuff feel great, and I feel like that is really commendable.
Yeah. And we didn't touch on it, but the speed running part was really fun too, especially as an introduction to the PlayStation, starting to see notifications pop up about people beating your times in certain levels. And then being able to immediately press a button and be taken right to that level, skipping everything, even if you're playing a different game, and be able to go against their time, just really showed what the system can do in a lot of unique ways that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, it was interesting when this game came out. Like people were rushing to play Miles and Demon Souls and all the other showcases that came with the launch of the system. But no matter what, one constant amongst everyone's play was that everyone went in and played Astro's Playroom. Everyone was on those leaderboards. I was getting 7 to 8 notifications each time I turned my PS5 back on because of people just playing this game or trying to beat each other's times and just loving every second of it. So it was a nice ad. And what was also nice is that there were trophies tied to the speed running, but you didn't need to get those for the platinum. I think that was
dumb.
The trophy list was really well designed. in a way that you didn't need to touch everything in order to get the platinum, because some things for accessibility purposes or whatever the case might be, like I can imagine someone with mobility issues having problems with like the motion control segments in the speed running. So the fact that they made it even more accessible to more players, I think, is to be commended.
Big agree. I guess
Yeah.
I'll jump in with my number 3 now. If you are done talking about Astrobots, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so my number 3 is one that has been mentioned beforehand.
Do you remember, though, that mention was in another episode, so we can go as in-depth on this as you'd like to.
Yes, it was mentioned in somebody's best of the rest of Mitch's, and I yelled, "You bastard," because it's Hades. Hades is so good. Like, Supergiant Games hasn't made a bad game. They only make good stuff, and I don't know if I like this more than Transistor, which is my current favorite Supermassive game, but Supergiant. Sorry,
Supermassive was
Until Dawn.
Until Dawn. Thank you.
Yeah, but Hades is incredible. It's roguelike. It's every weapon that you get in the game, because you choose your starting weapon, and then from there you get like the add-ons of what type of effects and what type of actual, like, how your weapon works throughout, like, what decisions you make through what rooms you go into, and just it every time feels great. There's obviously some runs, like any roguelike, where some runs are better than others, but I've never not had fun playing Hades. It's also just a wonderful pick up and play experience. Like, you can play, at most, if you're on a really good run, at most you're spending 45 minutes to an hour on it, like, at most. And that's, if you want to commit to the run. And so it was really easy to just sink a lot of time into it. And I've beaten it, and I still go back to play it every now and then. Like, I think I have played at least 1 to 2 runs every night since the game came out. Like, I play that game consistently. I love Hades so much, and just the storytelling and the way the way dialogue changes depending on what characters have given you items and what characters you're then interacting with, and how the story tells itself throughout multiple runs. And even after you beat the game, there's still more story to be told. I just think it's incredible. And also the soundtrack, this has been 2020 has been the year of banger soundtracks. There's so many games. I think every game on my list has a incredible soundtrack. Like this, there's so many aspects about Hades. There's really not much that I can say I didn't like about it. There's some enemies that I'm like, oh, I don't really like fighting that enemy, but that's kind of more nitpicky. It's a phenomenal game, and the only reason it's not higher is just because the other 2 games, I just feel like I just clicked with me more, but this still is like so... If this could... I honestly think that depending on what day you ask me, this game would be my favorite game of 2020.
Yeah, I think to add to that, because you did mention, like, it made my best of the rest, and it's just funny, you've been in a relationship with Hades just a little bit longer than I've been married, which is really the reason why it's lower on my list than it is, because it did not come out at a good time for me to be playing games, because it came out the week I got married. So I played it a bit on my honeymoon, and I loved every second I spent with it, but I didn't really get back to it when that all kind of ended and got back to work and life and all of those things. And I think having played a little bit more of it since then, I absolutely agree with you on everything you're saying, and it would be higher on my list if I'd had more time to put into it. There are a few weapons I'm not as big of a fan of. I really love the shield. The shield is so good. And like you said, it's every run feels unique. Everything about the game just has that one more round kind of mechanic to it. I can just get one more quick run in, see where I can get a little more of the, I don't know what they're called, like the pickup to like upgrade your character, like so you can upgrade your character and those persist between runs so you're constantly feeling more and more powerful as the character. but you're still going through and having to get the specific perks from each of the gods and all of these kinds of things. And I think the balancing is damn near perfect for a game of this of this style. Like, I'm absolutely enamored with it.
Yeah.
All right, Cozy, you want to hit us with number 3?
Yes, which, if I recall correctly, I believe was What Remains of Edith Finch. Correct?
You are correct, sir.
Cool. I made this list a bit in advance, so I didn't fully remember the order of some of these. What Remains of Edith Finch. It is a walking simulator / puzzle game that kind of fired on all cylinders and really connected with me. It tells a really emotional story in which various characters from throughout the Finch family kind of reminisce / meditate on their deaths in ways that are simultaneously like comical and even hilarious, but also really kind of tragic and sad. Gameplay wise, I feel like it does some really, really interesting things within the kind of confines of what we think of as the walking simulator genre. There's a really great moment that we alluded to on the episode where I originally talked about this game, but which I'm just going to go in depth to here on this podcast, because this is a spoiler zone, where the game effectively breaks the fourth wall to tell you how to move on to another section of the house. Early on, you're explained that this house you're exploring, the Finch house, is filled with all sorts of secret labyrinthian passageways that allow you to quickly get to new rooms or entirely circumvent locked doors and whatnot. And you are shown a kind of like music player that a ballerina pops out of. You activate the music player by turning a knob, and you see it play, and you're like, okay, cool, that was fine. You progress through the house. You learn about some more people that died within it. Eventually, you get to this one story that basically plays out like a kind of caricature of a slasher fic. Basically, you learn about, I forget what her name is, but basically she is a former child star that is since been washed up, and basically her death story kind of plays out in the form of a comic book, an interactive comic book that you play through, set to the Halloween theme by John Carpenter. It's real wild. Anyways, halfway through that comic book sequence, she's like, oh yeah, my grandfather hit all sorts of weird puzzles inside this house. For example, this music box here, what you have to do is you have to keep turning it over and over and over again, and eventually the key will come out of it, which allows you to access the basement. And I remember experiencing that part, just being like, holy shit, like this is incredibly reminiscent of, like, for example, the package in Metal Gear Solid 1, where you're told, oh, if you want to contact Meryl, you'll have to go and access the package. And it turns out that the package is actually the video game package that your copy of Metal Gear Solid came with. Like, the way that this game just sort of, kind of defies expectations and kind of messes with conventions and, wraps it all up in a real kind of beautiful, heartfelt story is just real masterful. And it's too bad that I didn't play in 2018, because that could have been potentially my game of the year in 2018 if I had played it then.
Is that when it came out? I thought it, I think it actually came out in 2017.
Oh, 2017. Oh,
so What Remains of Edith Finch released on PC and PlayStation 4 in April of 2017, on the Xbox One in July of that year, and on the Nintendo Switch July 4th of 2019.
I mean, it doesn't change anything about my argument. Nor does it change the fact that it could have been my game of the year in 2017 as well.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to add to it, because I didn't get to this title until it came to PlayStation Plus in, I think it was May of 2019. And in the time I spent with it, I absolutely fell in love with the characters, the story, the tragedies involving the Finch family. Like, it's so well crafted. Mm-hmm. I loved every second of it. So I can echo everything you say, Cozy. Like, if I'd been doing these kind of lists in 2017, 2018, or in this case 2019, even with it being an older game, it likely would have made that list, because I was bawling by the end of that game. And me being the softy I am, I will bawl at almost anything, including drunk at 3 a.m. on a Discord holiday party where we're reminiscing on how shitty 2020 has been. But that's a story for another day. So yeah, anytime a game can evoke that kind of emotion for me, it jumps right to the top of any lists. And my mouth. Edith Finch was absolutely a game like that for me.
Yeah, totally.
Anyone else have any thoughts on what remains of Edith Finch?
It's a great game.
As somebody who
Everybody
played it for
should
the
play it.
first time on the Nintendo Switch, don't play it on the Switch. It's not very good on there.
Really?
It's a wonderful experience, but
Play
don't
it again. Play it again, Alex. Play it on a more suited console.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, I suggest most people, if it's available on a different platform, unless portability is super important to you, don't play it on the Switch.
You know, like how I played
It is important to you. Play it on Stadia.
Yes, true. If it's there.
One last thing I will say on Edith Finch. This is not a criticism, but it is something about the game that I was, I guess, left wanting of. So eventually, towards the end of the game, we explore the kind of elder Edith Finch, the kind of grandmother of the character that you're playing as. And I kind of connected to the elder Edith Finch a bit because she, in some ways, actually reminded me of my old grandmother in that she came from Europe because she had to kind of escape a bad situation there. And while the elder Edith Finch is definitely a more eccentric character than my grandma, there are definitely a lot of parallels in terms of their passions. And it was a little bit disappointing that when you get into kind of the elder Edith Finch's story, it seems like it's going in a really interesting direction, and then it is interrupted by your mother, who says, no, I don't want your head being filled up with any more of these ridiculous stories. So would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that story play out, but I understood that, you know, the reason why that story was cut off so soon is because they were going for a kind of, it served a greater narrative purpose, basically.
Yeah, it was part of the tragedy of Edith Finch was how disconnected she was from her family until coming back and exploring their patriarchal home, essentially, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, totally agree with you there. Loved it. AJ, can you hit us with your number 3 pick for 2020?
I sure can.
Where's the prop? Oh, there it is.
It's on my face.
Here we go. Jordy LaForge is here.
Yeah, buddy.
It's Overwatch.
My number 3 pick is a very recent game, a very broken game, but a game that I am.
We're not talking about broken games on this list.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh,
You could say it broke into this list.
Yeah, maybe that. This is maybe this is the cyberpunk all along. Cyberpunk is against all odds. I'm having a very, very good time with it. I am approximately, at the time of this recording, 40 or so hours into it. I'm having a very hard time putting it down. That is to say, it's not without its criticisms. I'm not having necessarily all the I did get the one really good bug where the dick falls through the pants. That was a fantastic chef's kiss bug. I loved it.
It's not a bug; it's a feature.
Yeah, it should have been. It should have been. Yeah. And so I'm having fun with it, and I'm not getting a lot of the problems a lot of other people tend to be having with it at this point. I think if I mentioned it before we started recording the first episode today, I think if I were to give it, so I like to run off of rather than like a 10-point scale or a 100-point scale or whatever in terms of scoring things. I think I like to work off of like a top 5, not top 5. We're doing a top 5. Out of 5 scale, like the old X-Play used to, or Giant Bomb does currently when they do reviews. I would probably give it a 3.5 to a 3.5, 4, somewhere in there. We'll see how the game wraps up when I finally finish it. Out of 5, I think. Well, it's obviously a victim of its own ambition, and everything. And
we've also seen that from CD Projekt Red in the past, right? Like we all know The Witcher 3 came out and was pretty broken, and in some ways is kind of still broken to this day. So the fact that people didn't anticipate this with Cyberpunk, I feel like people put it on this pedestal of like they gave it so much time to bake that people put it on this weird unattainable pedestal that it was never going to reach those same heights.
But Witcher 3 wasn't this broken at launch.
It was not this broken.
But it
was
also
not.
still was pretty broken, but nobody remembers it because I think the biggest distinction between The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk is that Cyberpunk had eyes on it as soon as it was announced, where no one gave a shit about The Witcher 3 until The Witcher 3 had come out and people played it, a year after it had come out, or even when the Netflix show had dropped, like 3 years after it came out. So it really was like people are looking at it way more with rose-tinted glasses, where Cyberpunk had eyes on it.
More people played it after they fixed it than they did at launch, whereas Cyberpunk was like this big, huge tentpole holiday release, which if you'd asked me, I mean, we talked about this when they delayed it the first time of, they're going to delay it again. Just push it, indeterminate date, and put it out when it's ready. We would have been upset at the time, but people would not have been as upset as to what they're experiencing right now.
People in general wouldn't have been as upset, but the investors will. And we on the last normal episode of the podcast, we kind of got into like in the money side of it and whatnot, and the influence that has. And it's just kind of a shame because I can see like the thread through like all the good parts, and like, man, if this little bit worked properly and they had just put this in here, or taken this part out entirely, or something like so when you start off the game, you get a bit of an intro mission, and then it goes, when you finish that intro mission, it does like a montage of what you do when you quote unquote get to Night City. I started with the Nomad path. It absolutely feels like all of that should have been in the game, but they had to cut it for whatever time constraints because it wasn't ready, and they just said, fuck it, make a montage. As soon as you get out of the montage and you get into the real world, suddenly you're getting phone calls from people who you've never interacted before, who presumably should have been a proper mission introducing you to, in a similar vein, like all this, like Cyberpunk kind of secretly hyped up its cybernetic enhancement feature, and specifically so there's how do I articulate this at the moment? It's okay. So there's a different kinds of enhancements that you can get in your arms. Let's say some of them. One of them in particular is a set of mantis blades, and that to me feels like it should be a really big moment. But instead, all it is you go to the shop, you buy it, you go into your menu, and you put it in, and it's just not a thing. You like so many cut corners and everything. However, like I can just see the thread of where this should have gone, which is why it's not higher on my list at the moment. I am having so much fun with the story and exploring the world and everything, the retro future cyberpunk theme, because it is set in like a 1980s version of cyberpunk in 2077, right? Based off of the 2020 board game, didn't come out in 2020, came out in like 1990 or something.
The Cyberpunk 2020.
Yeah, Alex, you have it, right?
I do.
Yeah,
we're gonna play it at some point. Don't you worry.
I hope so.
Yeah, that'd be great. But Alex, you didn't get a chance to say anything on Cyberpunk. I just want to give you an opportunity because you put a few hours into it.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, I'm about 16, and I was the guy who was excited for Cyberpunk. That was my personality.
It still is. You're wearing the sweater.
I am
currently.
And I do quite enjoy Cyberpunk 2077. Like, I think it is, when it worked, and I preface, I guess, I'm playing it on the Xbox Series X through the backwards compatibility. And
AJ, you're playing it on PC, right?
My 40-hour save is on PC.
And
Wow,
I've been
that's
playing
great.
it on Google Stadia.
Wow.
We'll talk about it on the next proper episode, Alex. Don't worry.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I've been playing it on the Series X, and when it works, and it works pretty well most of the time. Like I think the Series X, if you are going to play it on a console, is probably the best place to play it. And I don't regret getting it on the Series X at all. But
You
it's
almost did.
Yeah, almost. But fortunately, it seems that the way, basically it is just a PC at this point. It runs the game really well, and I think the game itself is very cool, and it tells really interesting stories. There's one side mission that everyone talks about, like all the reviewers were talking about, where you have to go find taxis that have gone self-aware, and
Yes.
that mission, that whole mission arc is incredible. It is some of the best storytelling.
I'm only on like part 1 of that, so let's try to avoid spoilers, at least within this group.
Okay.
For now.
Yeah. Okay. I
All right,
will
appreciate
not
it.
go into too much detail, but I think it's incredible. I think it really asks interesting questions, as well as is just a really entertaining, story, like a little side story that is almost in a way completely divorced from the main story. I'm not too invested with the main story. I think Keanu Reeves is kind of a dickhead.
That's the character, though, right? Like,
I
the
know.
character's meant to be a bit of a dick.
I know, but like it's hard to then be invested in, trying to help him because,
Yeah.
what you're doing, mutually benefits both of you. But
Okay, I think I'm gonna put a pin in this for now. I think we do have to have a spoiler cast discussion at some point,
sure.
and that is not this episode, because we have been talking about this game for the last like 25 minutes.
yeah,
Maybe
I
we
think
even need a
1 hour
rehab at a future date.
For
Cyberpunk's
sure.
great. I think Cyberpunk's great, but I don't think it is, especially in the state that it is in now, is not worth putting on my list or even
Maybe
honorable
next year.
mentions. Maybe next year when it's actually
And
So
just to wrap up, my number 3, it deserves to be there despite the flaws. I haven't run into them, and I'm having a good time with the 40 hours I put into it so far. So
I think if we're talking broken games, it's near the top of the pile this year, alongside things like Marvel's Avengers. My number 2, Ghost of Tsushima.
it's close.
I absolutely adored. You thought I was going to segue to Avengers, didn't you, Cozy?
I think we all did.
For a brief second, I was concerned.
Really
For a brief second.
No, Ghost of Tsushima is my number 2 game of the year. You'll have to wait and see. what
Avengers
number
is going to
one.
be number 1.
We'll talk
Understood.
about that in a minute. Ghost of Tsushima is so well done, so well executed on the part of Sucker Punch, who have not made games like this before. It is a departure in many aspects from what they've made traditionally in the infamous games. It tells a beautiful story of a samurai who, has to weigh the moral dilemma of, does he stick to the path of the samurai? Does he take on the identity of the ghost, go against his morals but save his people? It's really, really good. And what pushes it to where it is on my list, and I know Alex was able to talk about it a bit last week and how he hasn't touched the multiplayer, I absolutely fell in love with the multiplayer in this game when they added it to it. It is not something I expected to enjoy, because it really does break down into, like, there's some missions you do co-op, and then there's a horde mode style 4-player, kill all the bad guys. And you'd think it's rudimentary, but you get the right squad in there, the right party makeup, the right leveling. The loot, the loop for the loot is really, really well crafted in that game, specifically in the multiplayer. It's so special what Sucker Punch has delivered, and they did the right thing of put out the game. The game was beautiful, phenomenal. For me, one of my games of the year without the multiplayer. And then a couple months later, just to remind you, oh yeah, this game exists, they put out some of the best multiplayer content for a game we've gotten this year, in my opinion, because it's just so well executed. It fits within the narrative of the game, but it's its own thing, and it does make sense that they kind of treated them as 2 different things. Anyone who should play this. I cannot wait. I've already got the platinum. I still want to boot this back up on the PS5. One, because they just released some Sony character themed skins if you play the multiplayer, which I want. There's a Kratos skin, a Bloodborne skin, Horizon Zero Dawn skin, and
Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus. Thank you. I want to get those because I love this game and I want to see what it's like at 60 FPS on the PS5, and it's so good. So good. Anyone else have thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima before we move on?
I hope it's on sale in a few days.
You mean tomorrow?
Is tomorrow the 23rd?
22nd. The PSN digital sale starts on the 22nd, I thought.
Oh, I thought it was the 23rd. Well, then tomorrow I hope it's on sale.
And none of that makes sense because this episode's coming out in like 2 weeks.
Well, then retroactively, I hope it's on sale.
I hope it's on sale too because I want to play with you, Nathan, because it's so good.
Yeah.
Alex, I think you're the only other person to have played it. Do you have anything more you want to say on the game that you didn't get to say in our last episode?
No, I think just to kind of reiterate, I just think it's really cool to have an open world game, especially being so far into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Ghost of Tsushima is really nice because it really takes advantage of the moments of quiet and zen, and I know that's very much part of like the theme and the overall aesthetic of the game, and I just think that's something that really stood out and should be appreciated more, and I hope we see more of it.
Yeah, so do I. All right, let's move on. Nathan, you want to give us your number 2 pick on your games of the year for 2020?
Games of the year 2020. For me, it's not the game I put the most hours into, but it's up there. Fall Guys. Ultimate Knockout. This is so Mitch, you talked a lot about not being a multiplayer guy. I'm the same way. And Fall Guys, I don't know, something just hit me the right way. I got into the beta before it came out and realized how good it was, and then started playing it on PlayStation, which was free with PS Plus, although I would have bought it either way. And I just had a ton of fun playing with it. I mastered the controls. I got really good at it, and I won a ton of crowns. I think I'm at like 58 crowns or something now. So it's just a fun pick up and play, short sessions, get in and out. Maybe you win, maybe you don't, but it's good every time. Mitch, I know you were playing it too.
You and I played a lot of this game together this year, and I really, really, really love what they've done here. I think Mediatonic did a great job with this title. I think it being on PlayStation Plus was a stroke of genius on the part of both Sony and the developer, because, I mean, it had a lot of steam going out of the PC beta, but even then, there wouldn't be as many people playing this had it not been for PS Plus. I think that was a really great decision, especially this year with people needing, I mean, I've been talking about it this whole show. We needed multiplayer gaming in 2020, and I think, by and large, a number of really great games came out that do scratch that itch. Fall Guys definitely being chief among them. For me, Among Us was my indie multiplayer experience of the year, but I can totally see the case for Fall Guys as well. Seasons are a little too long though.
Yeah, the new season is 64 days, although I think it's a much better thought out season than the first one. I think the first one they threw together really quickly.
Not play very much in season 2. I should maybe jump back over the holidays for season 3.
I didn't enjoy season 2 as much, and I definitely didn't play it nearly as much. But season 3, the new change in the levels are really good, and they there's a crown counter now to help you keep track, and there's supposed to be some rewards for how many crowns you get too now.
Yeah.
So I think we don't have a deals of the day section, but if you link your Amazon Prime account, you get an extra costume and 3 extra crowns.
I should probably do that. We'll talk about it offline. In the meantime, Cozy, you want to tell me about your number 2 pick, Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what more can really be said about Final Fantasy VII Remake this year? I will say,
we literally have not talked about it yet in the Game of the Year. Talk away.
True, and nobody else has mentioned it in their best of the rests. So, I realize now, comparing Final Fantasy VII Remake to the rest of the games on my list, that it is kind of an outlier in that I made such a big deal about how I loved the shorter experiences in 2020. And here's Final Fantasy VII Remake, a game that I did not find overly long, but that a lot of people did find overly long. A lot of people did think was a little bit too drawn out. Whatever the case was, I didn't find Final Fantasy VII Remake to be any more drawn out than it needed to be. I thought it was exactly as girthy of an experience as it as it needed to be. And I just Final Fantasy VII is a game that I always had a lot of respect for a game that a kind of franchise, I think more appropriately, that I always wanted to really get into. And I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake was special, not just because it presented the kind of characters and plot of the original game well, but it presented them well in a way that by the standards of 2020 we can all sit around and say, oh yeah, that's actually really, really good, which I feel happen. These sorts of reinventions in the nature of Final Fantasy VII remakes happen so seldomly in media, and so I'm really glad that we got it. And not really much else to say there.
I think I can attribute, I agree with almost everything you're saying, Cozy. It's a beautifully crafted experience. It didn't feel like it took 50 hours to beat the first time, but it did. And it was 50 hours well spent. Because as you know, I went back, I got the Platinum Trophy by playing the game again on hard mode, which was a ton of fun. I think what comes out most for me for this game, what stands out for me, are the performances.
Totally.
So in terms of Brianna White as Aerith was phenomenal. Britt Baron as Tifa was a standout. John Eric Bentley as Barrett. Like the core cast was just so goddamn good and it did for me what similarly to Cozy. I've never been a Final Fantasy guy, and this game gave me a reason to care about these characters that I've seen memed out of existence on the internet for the last 15, 20 years. I absolutely love this game. And I'm glad to see it getting representation on this list.
Hell yeah.
Mr. Ballant.
Yes.
Number 2, if you would.
My number 2 is the one game that I was super excited for this year that didn't disappoint me at all in any way, shape, or form. It's the only game with a big green space guy who actually came out this year, and it's Doom Eternal. I fucking love Doom Eternal so
didn't we
much.
get something Halo? We got Master Chief Collection updates this year.
I mean, yeah, but
we got Master Chief on all your Monster Energy drinks.
And on PC, and also he's now in Fortnite, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
Either way, we're not talking about Master Chief. Relationship ended with Master Chief. Now I'm best friends with Doom Guy. And Doom Guy is incredible. Doom Eternal is an expansion on Doom 2016 in every possible way that is incredible. I don't think it faults anywhere. I think it took what Doom 2016 did, which was, hey, let's bring back retro first-person shooters, but modernize it, but in the ways that people like, but keeping the skeleton of what people liked about first-person shooters, especially Doom. And I think Doom Eternal does that so great. And honestly, in some ways, I think it's a really good resource management game. When you start Doom Eternal, that game's fucking hard when you start it. You're dying a lot because it really rewards you learning how to interact with this world. How do you kill those demons? How do you kill the spider one with the turret? How do you kill the I can't remember any of their names, like the Mancubus and all of those ones. How do you deal with them? Because every weapon you have gives you some advantage over one particular demon, and you have to use that, and you have to use that going at Mach fucking 50. You are going so fast, and you have to make decisions really, really rapidly to be able to get through arenas, because arenas, they are not forgiving. They will kill you instantly if you make mistakes. And I really love how much it rewards you for being good at the game. I love Doom Eternal so much, and playing the deal
hurt my eyes in a good way, where there's just so much going on. It's constantly just and I had to take breaks from it because I'm not the youngin' I used to be when I'm playing these games. But God, the Twitch shooter lives on in a very strong way with Doom Eternal. Yeah,
and even because I played it pretty heavily when it came out in March. It was
you stayed up until 9-10 p.m. thinking it was going to unlock early, and we're playing Halo on stream.
Yeah.
And because the game didn't come out, and you were real sad.
I had the time zone thing mixed up.
That was the first time this sort of thing happened to you this year, and then the same thing happened with Cyberpunk.
Yeah, everything I love wants to hurt me.
Yeah,
but yeah, like playing the DLC a month ago or so, or 2 months ago when it came out, reminded me how much I love this game. Like, I think it has knocked it out of the park consistently. And now that it's not like that they were starving for budget, but now that they're going to be under Microsoft, and the fuck you money that Microsoft has, I'm so excited to see what they do next. Part of me hopes that it's not even a Doom game, but also if they do make another sequel to Doom, I would love that, because Doom Eternal is so good, and I feel like they just have so many ideas and they couldn't cram enough of them in, so they could probably make another one and it would be, I think, just as phenomenal.
They're going to remake Doom 3.
I think we're on the same page here. Halo Eternal?
Dude, honestly, at this point, I'd rather id take over Halo.
Yeah. It's already Halo is eternal already, so
yeah.
All right, my turn. So what you were saying, Mitch?
Were you going to suggest something on Doom before I interrupted, or did you want to?
I think I was going to make a joke, but I forget it now.
Okay, cool. Let's get into your second favorite game of 2020.
Yeah, it's a game that I haven't put as much time into as I have, say, Cyberpunk or even my number one game. But it's a game that struck me in the nostalgia core so strongly. I don't have much to add that Nathan didn't already say. It's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Hell yeah.
Number 2 on my list. The skateboarding games just hold a special place in my heart. Thinking back to, when I'd go to the Jumbo Video nearby and rent the newest Tony Hawk for the GameCube and play it there, and it just, what I learned this year was I played Tony Hawk wrong when I was a kid, in that I would just put in all the cheat codes, the infinite grind, the infinite. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, now I kind of learned that, oh man, this is actually really hard to manipulate the controller in this way. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a great time doing it. So yeah, Tony Hawk, I don't have anything other than it's great to add to what I don't have anything other than what Nathan already said to it. So okay, cool. Yeah, it's great.
So Nathan said that was it Spider-Man and Ghost were the games you were hoping were on sale? For me, that game is Tony Hawk. I want to play this so bad. So if it goes on sale into the holiday sale season, I'm picking this one up.
Can I just say it runs really well on the PS5? Like, it's super
where
quick.
I want to play it. That's why I haven't picked it up on the game store yet.
Has there been a PS5 update? Like, did they put in some DualSense controller support or anything yet, or no?
No PS5 update. They did update which went over multiplayer and did a few major changes in terms of how you can do all the goals as each skater now, instead of it just being one group thing for all the skaters together. And added extra challenges into the mix to hit that level 100. But nothing specifically PS5. But honestly, the load times are seconds now, where it would take close to a minute to load some of the levels on PS4.
Cannot wait to experience that. I think with that, we spent a lot of time talking about numbers 3 and 2 on each of our lists. I'm going to say we save number 1 for our next finale episode to our game of the year
cliffhanger.
I'm into it. Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
All right. I think to wrap up this episode, though, I've already seen everyone's list because I was a cheater who had to make sure everything would look good for the spreadsheet. So I know everyone's number 1 pick. Spoiler alert. But I think it'd be fun if we went host by host and the other host would guess what we think their game of the year is. So I'm going to start. So Nathan, Alex, and Cozy, what do you think AJ's game of the year is going to be?
Ooh. What have you played this year?
No Man's Skies already.
No, that was on his honorable.
Yeah.
Played a lot of
Minecraft's already there too.
Oh, okay.
Minecraft's also honorable mentions.
I have to look at what games came out this year.
Cozy, any thought?
No, I mean, the one game that immediately came to mind was The Last of Us Part 2, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, he didn't bring that up, though. I think it might be The Last of Us Part 2.
Did you
Could
play
be.
The Last of Us Part 2, AJ?
He was
I
on
did.
the spoiler cast.
I was on the spoiler cast and everything.
Okay, yeah. It feels like so long ago, but it was what?
Oh my god.
June.
Yeah.
God,
I
that
guess we
feels
did our spoiler cast
15 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
I was a
This
bachelor
podcast has
at
been
that
going
point.
for-
I was not happily married.
I don't know if that means you were a bachelor at that point because you were committed.
I was committed, but, All right. So
Yeah.
consensus seems to be on The Last of Us Part 2. Okay, the rest of you guys, Nathan. What do we think Nathan, or what do we know Nathan's game of the year is going to be? Who are we even kidding at this point?
It's Animal Crossing.
It has to be Animal Crossing.
Has
Yeah.
to
We
be.
don't know that.
Cozy?
I mean, yeah, it's Animal Crossing. Come on.
All right. Alex, what do we think Alex's game of the year is going to be?
Hey, he hasn't said
Well, I know what his game of the year is going
Cyberpunk
to be.
yet. He hasn't said
That's
Cyberpunk
true.
yet.
No.
What do you-
Anything's possible.
An anime game.
Just knowing how hyped Alex was to play Cyberpunk when it came out, I think that it's going to be Cyberpunk. I don't think that Alex is going to be without his criticisms of it, but I think it's going to nab the number one spot.
And Nathan, anime game. Which anime game specifically? The one he wouldn't shut up about?
Yeah, and he made a documentary about.
Yeah.
Or was it a documentary he made? It was
Yeah.
specifically about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my Let's move. Cozy. What's Cozy's game of the year going to be?
What did Cozy play?
What did he play this year that came out in
He brought up,
2018?
didn't he bring up some sort of like weird hentai simulator or something at one point?
Played a number of Radalika titles. What did he play on
Wait,
his extra
yeah.
screen?
New
I
Punch Out
recently,
Boxing.
I
Genshin
played.
Impact. Genshin Impact.
I actually have not played Genshin Impact.
Apex Legends.
I want to play Genshin
Season
Impact at
whatever
some
it is
point.
now.
The last
74?
Radalika game I played, by the way, I'm pretty sure it's Radalika, not Radalika. I don't know why it's pronounced Radalika by some people.
Oh, you know what? No, I saw him streaming some Lego game, some really old Lego game.
Alpha.
That-
something.
Oh, Lego Alpha Team.
Yeah. Maybe.
He also played a lot of BioShock this year.
He did.
I platinumed and completed the entirety of Minerva's Den just last night, actually.
So you
Wow.
tweeted. Okay. So we're kind of all over the place with Cozy. That seems understandable. What do you guys think my game of the year is going to be?
Avengers.
No.
Oh, it's Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he knows the problems with Avengers as much as he enjoys it to put it in the best of the year. Although I'm surprised it didn't hit an honorable mention.
Yeah, exactly.
I had too many of my honorable mentions. That's why I didn't make it there.
You could still put it there.
Okay. Maybe
And it would still get 0
if I
points.
repeat what's number one. Maybe the other will go into the honorable mentions. Cozy, what do you think my game of the year is?
I think it has to be Final Fantasy VII Remake, just based on the way that you described it. I legitimately don't remember what you said your number one was from the Toronto Halloween party. So it's going to be a sort of a surprise for me. Oh, that's right. Why is it? I don't know why, but I'm in a weirdly like Halloween-ish mood. At the beginning of this episode, I said there's going to be great Black Friday deals when I should have said Boxing Day deals. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. We've given our predictions for what the other host game of the year is going to be. If you have any ideas as to what you think our games of the year are going to be before we reveal them, please be sure to share those with us anywhere we are on the social media. You can find the show on Twitter, No, we're not on Facebook. Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, anywhere you can find us. YouTube at Press YYZ. If you enjoyed what you just heard from part 2 of our Game of the Year discussion, be sure to check us out over at Twitch. Rate us on Apple Podcasts. Hit that subscribe button over on YouTube. We'll keep you up to date with everything going on in the show via all these channels whenever anything does come up. And if you wanted to bug each of us about our Game of the Year picks, you can find all of us individually on social media. I can be found at Mr. Mitch George each and everywhere you can find me. Alex, where can people find you?
I am on Twitter at blatantly_Alex and on Instagram at blatantlyAlex.
AJ, let them know where you are on the internet.
You can find me all over the internet at ×0, capital T, capital H.
Nathan, let them hear you.
Follow me at _NMAC on Twitter and Instagram.
Mr. Kazina, the floor is yours.
You can find me on Twitter at Alex Kozina.
Next time, we'll get to our number one picks as well as the overall Press YYZ Game of the Year for 2020. But until then, thanks for playing.
Take care, guys.
Spike your hair.
Yeah, buddy.